Joining me now is Research Fellow in Economic Policy Studies focusing on poverty and homelessness from the American Enterprise Institute, Kevin C. Corinth. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, in a recent article of yours, you mentioned the miscalculation of counting homelessness and the difficulty the government faces when accounting for homeless people, specifically data that they show that there's been a decrease of 32% in the number of people sleeping on the streets since 2007. Can you explain why you think there's such difficulty collecting this data?
Yeah, look, it's really hard to count people who don't want to be found. A lot of people sleeping on the streets have a variety of issues, whether it's with mental health problems or addiction. They don't necessarily want to be found by people counting them. And I should mention that these counts are done by volunteers in the community one night in January. So I should say that there's a lot of skepticism that we should have when thinking about numbers. And the fact that the federal government has made it a big priority to decrease homelessness makes me doubt the numbers even more.
Sure. That seems like a very difficult thing to collect numerically and not a very scientific way of going about doing it. But does this data issue lead to impractical or misplaced solutions by our government in addressing this problem?
I think it really does. So the federal government has gone forth with an initiative to try to end homelessness. Ending homelessness is probably impossible given the money that we have. And to me, ending homelessness can't be the end solution anyway. For whatever population we're talking about, whether it's the single adult sleeping on the streets or the single parent with a couple kids showing up in shelters, if the solution is just about ending their homelessness, to me, that's selling them short. We need something more, which is about power. So getting people into work, reconnecting with family, overcoming any drug issues. If we can get treatment for mental health issues, doing that too, so that they can be empowered to be a fully functioning member of society. That has to be our goal.
Right. Let's talk about the solutions for a second and how they can practically be implemented. So I agree with you that homelessness itself isn't the cause of the problem. It's how the problem manifests. And if the problem is mental health issues, addiction, or what have you, how do we address that as a society in a program sense? Because it's so easy for us to sit here and say, oh, we need to address the drug problems, we need to address mental health issues, but how do we go about doing that in an effective way?
Yeah, well, it's easy to set up silos for these things. So it's easy to say for the housing department to deal with housing, for the health people to deal with health, for the job people to deal with jobs. But, I think we need a more integrated approach than that. People are very complicated and they need individualized support that takes account of all these different factors. And so you need programs that are evaluated not just based on, in the homelessness industry, on ending somebody's homelessness. That's not that hard to do. If you take someone who's on the street and you give them, no strings attached housing, most people will take that. The hard part comes in actually trying to get some of this more transformational change when it comes to getting people into work and reconnecting with family and overcoming those really difficult issues like mental health and drugs. And so to me, if we're going to be serious about uplifting people and empowering every single person, we have to take this integrated approach.
Right, and you talk about transformation. One of my pet solutions to this, an organization I think is doing a wonderful job addressing the issue of homelessness and drug addiction, is an organization called the Doe Fund. Now, they're based in New York, and their solutions are certainly tailored to New York City, but they address the issue through work, through addiction counseling, and through personal responsibility to empower, like you said, the individual to transform into a new productive member of society. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you know about the Doe Fund and whether this is a program that could be replicated to other cities across our nation?
Yeah, look, the Doe Fund to me is all about dignity. And to me, dignity is not just about taking someone from the street and putting them into housing, although I think that is very important. But it's about, taking this individual as a human being who can contribute to society. So the Doe Fund takes people who have been sleeping on the streets or in prison and have drug addiction problems. It gives them temporary housing, an apartment of their own to sleep in, and they connect them with work right away. So right away, they start cleaning up the streets of New York City, which is a wonderful thing. And then from there, they're transitioned into other types of occupations. They're trained to work in things like pest control and then they can transition to the private sector, and they won't any longer need assistance from a program like the Doe Fund. So I do think that vision is extremely important, and the one that we need to have more universally across homelessness programs and across more poverty programs as well.
Right, I agree with you 100%. It's the work that leads to the dignity to be able to care for oneself and one's family, to get away from drugs. And the Doe Fund has a very unique approach to this, kind of like we've seen in the past from family structures, that work is viewed as a privilege, as something that you earn the right to do, that you should be proud of. And that's a wonderful thing to see. And if the participants in the program slip back into drugs, they lose the privilege of work. And that's a huge shame within that program. And that's such a good attitude to be reintegrating into these individuals who have strayed away from these.